I'm gonna go. All right, here we go. And welcome to rlmRadio.xyz. It's reallibertymedia.com. I'm your host, Vincent Easley, the second, one of the many Vinnies, and I've decided to change over to own up and confess to being the paraphrased plagiarist. So you'll find me on Twitter now, Vincent Easley the second, as a paraplagiarist. And actually, that turns out to be actually a word that has been used. So, um, going to start out with the paraphrased part of today's broadcast, and we'll come along to the plagiarist part a little bit later that I pressed over at at WordPress there. But today it is we're going to take a look and talk about some things, and I will probably have to come back over here and talk to Chloe about whether we're slaves or if I'm a slave or you're a slave. But anyways, on the road to war, it's okay to rebel. Today, conquering the altruist, by the paraphrase plagiarist, yours truly, uh, and we're going to come to that. And war is inseparable from and impossible without altruism. Group commitment combined with bias oriented in group, out group. And we're going to come to that in the plagiarized part of the broadcast. Looks like everything's going. That intro was got wiggy somehow, but anyways, I will add it to the link there after we're all done. But they call it Freedom, and that's from Grim Rich Productions. I just found that and subbed their channel, and they've got two videos up there, and both of them's pretty good. The other one I think is called Moonrock. So, hey, shout out to them on YouTube over there. Kind of liked it, and as it came to be, I'll quit moving this mic in a minute. As it came to be that added to my title, which precedes On the Road to War. They, and thank you, Grimner, for the addition of the parentheses, for they call it freedom. That's a real good video, and when you're hearing this downstream, you'll see I'll include that. I guess I'll pop it in over at the WordPress and put that in the description of the broadcast if you're listening here on YouTube, which you're not hearing it right now, but you are hearing it right now, but not right now, right now. Okay. Let me uh, let me see here. I've got notes to start, but let me pop right back over here. Okay, Chloe, let me see here. No, yes to your question. Let me scroll back up. So it was talking about we were playing Play-Doh. Uh, I mean, we weren't playing, but the I was playing it through the radio. So Plato equals Western philosophy. I say that's what we got, and I kind of call it slavery. Now, very interesting this discussion. Now, so Plato, a few hundred years BC, seemed to have had the plan that we see. What is it? I said slavery, and Chloe thought that it was too bad that I saw myself as a slave. Well, we all serve in some way, and towards the end of this broadcast, we're going to get into just servitude, and in between, when I come around to it, we're going to come up to the altruist and kind of contrast that because I would call the contrast or the oxymoron, the individual altruist. So we'll see about the plagiarism part when that all rolls together, and I'll come to some notes here in a bit. But so yes, no, and maybe, Chloe, that be my answer. Okay, wait. All right, so clipping on peaks. Whoops, you're confused. I'll I'll be confused for sure then. You'll just have to see if you can figure it out as we go along. So I will start to say that having thought they had no need of love, not knowing its power, killing by rules of war, law, or moral conscience. Just because you have the right to do something, it doesn't always mean you should exercise it. Um, sometimes we do call for self-restraint or self-sacrifice, and that is how many would compare the altruist. What do we see on this road to war, and why we'd want to rebel? What is it? This war, this race of man, like crabs, greedily grabbing at the wreck on the reef and clamoring for all they can get just to devour it. When we look at ourselves, we'd look at our character then perhaps and let it ask of itself, and finding the value in knowing the power that lies within. So it has to start, of course, within in each of us separately, but together it comes together. Uh, right on, Chloe. Um, Let me roll on along here. So I started back, and I'm skipping forward. Well, this is how we might look at this slavery, because it is a lot of slavery. Listen to Plato. Listen to so much, and we see it explained as a plan. I mean, it's been working pretty good. And as the world burns, life in jeopardy, and the trivial pursuit, and really how much or how little we really know. And sometimes we might actually stand as false witnesses in so many ways, and you know, a highfalutin idiot or functioning. But yeah, we all kind of parrot um, so much, and I go to say I can call myself a paraphrased plagiarist. So what are we looking at here in this war, and who's the front man or the front man? Plato was talking about, that ultimately that tyrant that comes to control. We see throughout history, repeat, 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 same old, and we keep going for the same deal, right? We keep falling for it, and there's a lot of reasons why we do. So have we become or became the bad guy? We who stood as good, this common element of destability. I can't say the word, can I? Let's see. I do what? Oh, I got crabs. Yeah. No, not really. But there are those crabs on the reef, fiddling away as it burns. So fiddler crabs in Nero. I guess that's supposed to be. They claim that Nero wasn't actually anywhere near that fire. Really, he wasn't. Uh, Yum, none. Wow. Okay, that was a squirrel or a crab squirrel. Thank you, Grams. Uh, let's see. Where was I? Yes, that element of destabilizing. Okay, we see it. Um, rolling. Here is some that actually is applicable. This comes from Hal, BTWRLM184. You can do a search in your search engine for that, and that will bring you to that. And if it brings you to YouTube, you'll find it there. If it brings you to rlmRadio.xyz, to Hal's page. But anyways, if it's on YouTube, look in the description. You'll find the link back to it. Uh, what I have written here from that is this presumption set by the occupier. All right, so we are in an occupied position, whatever you want to call it, the government and so forth. But it is an occupation. It's obvious by it's a military occupation, and it is made obvious by the fact that um, yeah, the in the state level, attorney general, is it military? It goes on and on to the national level, but that's all been laid out for a lot of other people that by a lot of other people. So there's a lot of study there that you might probably already know. So, but we can look at it as, and I kind of paraphrasing here, Hal, but the woe that is upon us and things we must do to respond. Learning the language. And again, the replay this morning, I was hearing from Hal, and I was real busy running around. And I didn't draw it together. Not even sure, it might not even been the same one, but learning the language. Hal was talking about that. Pastcast every morning at 7 a.m. Central Time at ucy.tv, behind the woodshed, continuing lessons. So we look for these facts that prove an oppression, if we want to identify which, if we consider the trivium method. Now, you compare that to the classical trivium, which we might find implemented in these works from Plato and Socrates and so forth and so on, all tying together to bring us to the system that we are in. You might think you're free, but you are occupied by it, um, corralled, pinned in. All of us are, and there's no. It is. I mean, there's not much actual escape. You might have this freedom. Some call it freedom, right? Human rights and sustainable debt is what we've got. That's the corporate stakeholder, and they get the get out of debt free card, right? Thanks, Hal. That was the last cast from Al, actually, where that came from. And like I said, I think it was playing this morning. It did play last night. So Hal replays also Thursday night and occupies my old spot at ucy.tv of What Matters Worldwide. Learn a lot from Hal. Thank you, Hal Anthony. Now, let me come on along. Come on along, Eileen. Do you lean left or right? Kind of trying to take her down the middle. Uh-oh, am I gone? Well, I'm still recording. Thanks, guys. It says connecting, so I'm going to pause my recording and fix this. Okay, that brings us back. And Cynthia has commented. Let's go look at that real quick. All right, so we're back and reset and rolling. And I want to get over here and let's just look at this. This I plagiarized. I didn't quite paraphrase it, but so let me just hit me and again so I can refresh. Let's see what was said. And this came from Grimner on if you're listening downstream, come on back over to rlmRadio.xyz. Join in the chat room right there. We've got some comments. All righty. So this is the post. The media try this. The media is reporting that the media is not corrupt. You can all relax now. This just in. The government has investigated. The government has determined that the government is just fine. So we can believe that. Hey, there's my cousin. He liked it. R.C. Barnes D. Carrie Perticone. She does some radio. If you're on Facebook, search her up. Cynthia Brown. Ronnie Cook. Scott Thompson. Happy birthday. We shared the same birthday last week. Dennis Ford. Julieta, mi amiga, mi hermanita, también. Speculation. Hey, Becky. Thanks, y'all. So, Marcia, she says, right. And Cynthia said, thank God we have them. Wait, have them to tell us what to think. And indeed, that is so apropos because it is what we think is. Where do we get that think from? And Marcia also replied, and if you don't believe them, just ask them. Indeed. All right. So I think I can come back in over here. And what we're talking about here, and this does come from Plato, the Republic. Wait a minute. Let me just. Okay. There we go. So perfect injustice appears to be just. Think about that. And this is a stalking horse. So this ties back in lessons from Hal Anthony. This is a stalking horse that hides the stakeholder, right? E pluribus unum, out of many one. Never mind the esoteric implications. We are all in doing the stupid finger things. It. So we're in it together. They call it freedom. Some do, some don't. Thank you, Lumperdeedle, for posting that song, that introed in. And also, I have here in my notes, I do not forget, is to I I've met in person and via the web and talked to by phone and Skype and just so many people in this world. I've never met a stranger, so I've met a lot of good people. Harlan out in Las Vegas. I met her at Larkin Rose when he came out in 2014, and this person just stood out. Harlan did as a person. She gets it. You know, some of us we see these things similarly, and others, hey, we see things completely different or suppose we do, but I bet the closer we look, the more we'd see some of the same. So, Harlan, shout out to you and to freedomslips.com, Revolution Radio. She is a part of a lot of folks that are doing radio over there and sharing a bunch of important topics, which rolls right on into Kira on the bridge with Kira. Let me scroll down. We'll go ahead and get this. We'll get this here at the same time. Hey, Thomas Robert Lockever Stewart, thank you, and thank you for the happy birthday wishes, Harlan. Of course, it's going to slow down here for me. Gun Daniels, thank you for that post. Janet, thank you. Let's go ahead and give mention to that. That is remember the 5th of November, and I will come back and join in on that event. And thank you, Janet. Also, a person that has always been out there in the front, taking the stand. Uh, Lots of posts over here. Thanks, Dave Everest, for all yours. As I might just catch up. Remember, they call it freedom. Oh boy, you put a lot on there, Dave. That's like a whole bunch in a row. Thank you, Becky, for your vlog. Just being me, living life on our own terms. Here we go. So, Kira, this is seg to Kira. The first hour is going to be uh, Denise Pictou Maloney, and Suzanne Posel is going to be coming along in the second hour, and that is tomorrow, October 22nd, 2016, from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern in the U.S. of A. The Bridge with Kira is a special show, so tune in. That's tomorrow, Saturday, and okay. Did yes. Least I forget. Uh, Miss Kia. I'm gonna call him Ms. It's his Indian name. He's gonna be starting up. I think maybe Grimner got this put together here, and he and him, and gonna bring some radio over, targeting over to some folks and friends of his in Ireland. It will be 2 a.m. Eastern time when he'll be broadcasting. So we'll get more information on that as it comes. So and that's Kira's husband. Call him Miz. Okay. Uh, Now I think I'm all caught up. Let me come back over to who's still streaming. Good. Uh, Vince Gill is pretty great too. Hey, I'm a Gill. There's many Vinnies. All right, so I'm not going to catch up in chat, but welcome everybody over here. Tuned in. Some of the some of the folks that lend some of their learnings to me as well. So, and also at UCY.TV, a lot of great minds putting stuff out. Let's go back to it, shall we? On the path of war. See, I've been toying around with the with the title, and I actually just not what an hour or two before going to air is came up with the final title, and they call it freedom, and that came from that song. And on the road to war, it's okay to rebel. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to get into the altruist. Uh, so right now, on the road to war, the war path, or war being waged upon us. Um, this. democracy, this republic. And you go back, and so many people stand on this idea of a republic. Well, as Plato said, its natural order comes to the tyrant, a rule. Um, so I will definitely be wanting to. I've listened a couple times, but my mind wanders. So it takes me a while to sink it all in. And I definitely want to go back and I will be going back to re-listen to the Republic, Plato. It's audio on YouTube, almost 5 hours. Excuse me. So what are we fighting for? Peace. When do we want it? Now. No, wait. I don't have any pom poms. Fighting for peace. What is peace? Settlement. So where we are separately together, not the altruist we, but we that say there's a better way. Fighting for peace, not the ruse of war for supposed peace. That's displacement. And it is the opposite of settlement. This war that we're so proudly march for. We have monumented, and I think I made that word up, the evil in this world is the power. The individual altruist, the servant, then becomes a leader in a sense, in a self cycle. When we, the hero, when we die, who will fight the bad guys, or do we let the era be bygone, inheritors of the forgotten dead? Vanity lost, chased in the wind. The altruist to battle. Well, like sports, how did we get in this condition? Sing that song. This condition we are in. So individual collectives, and then the clash. Look at suppose it to be football, right? So we see how there are so many good things about football and playing, being part of a team, having direction, but also it is used. It's go back a few hundred years before the current era, and we see how things have been set, and certainly rolling along. So, bred to battle, right? We're different yet the same. So we have this appeal to morality in there as unity, and then in dehumanizing the enemy as being less than we. We'll talk more about that in the plagiarized part. Now let's go there now. So I'll be lost from chat as I go paraphrasingly plagiarizing along. There we go. So this is pressed to hemp and cannabis can save the world. Cannabis can. Another shout out for the 420, which is 1 minute from now somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean. And this has been brought to you by the Buzz Beaver. Conquering the Altruist by the Paraphrased Plagiarist, Vincent Easley II. I should probably, perhaps, have a swallow of water. This is going to be a lot of reading. So, I hope you can bear it as I try to bear it, to bring it forth, and look at these different thoughts from folks. And that's, after all, where we get our thoughts. And what I'm saying, I'm certain has been said before. Let's look at it. War is inseparable from and impossible without altruism. Group commitment combined with bias oriented in group, out group differentiation, and a psychological defense mechanism capable of convincing even the worst of us that we are basically good. And it allows us to empower, excuse me, allows us to empower the altruistic impulses for war. I'm sorry, excuse me. Let me continue. The debate over altruism is quite heated and extensive and spans many disciplines and sub-disciplines, including economics, game theory, evolutionary psychology, sociobiology, ethnology, social psychology, cultural anthropology, and evolutionary biology. Whole books are dedicated to the issue. the, the path to war begins with our individual belief that we are good in moral terms. Most of us, with a few exceptions, such are willing to kill at least some other creature and feel no particular guilt about doing so or empathy towards the creatures we kill. By doing so, we place our enemies psychologically into the group of creatures that we kill as pests or threats to ourselves and out of the in group that we do not kill. Of course, we maintain the ability to specifically specific, designate in groups and out groups culturally. The debate over truism is quite heated and extensive. Excuse me, and spans many disciplines and sub-disciplines. Hey, I already said that. Right? Yeah, all those. The whole books are excuse me, dedicated to the issue. That is from the road to peace.blogspot.com, altruism and war, HTML. The road to peace, altruism and war. That is the road to peace blogspot.com. Okay, next, plagiarism. It is true. A para plagiarism, excuse me, thank you. It is true that what I mean by selfishness is not what is meant conventionally. Then this is one of the this is one of the worst indictments of altruism. It means that altruism permits no concept of a self respecting, self supporting man, a man who supports his life by his own effort and neither sacrifices himself nor others. It means that altruism permits no view of men except as sacrificial animals and profiteers on sacrifice, as victims and parasites. That it permits no concept and a benevolent coexistence among men, that it permits no concepts of justice, faith and force, uh, fa- faith and force, the destroyers of the modern world. Philosophy, who needs it? Page 61. There are two moral questions which altruism lumps together into one package deal. One, what are the values? Values. Two, what should be the beneficiary of values? Altruism substitutes the second for the first. It evades the task of dividing a code of moral values, thus leaving man, in fact, without moral guidance. That is from Ayn Rand Lexicon on altruism. And further, altruism declares that any action taken for the benefit of others is good, and any action taken for one's own benefit is evil. Thus, the beneficiary of an action is only a criterion of moral value, and so long as the beneficiary is anybody other than oneself, anything goes. And Ayn Rand. When humans competed for limited resources, competition between groups for resources could have selected for groups that won wars. Without individuals that are hostile towards outsiders and willing to sacrifice themselves for the group, like the football player, take the hit, uh, block for the quarterback. Uh, that greater good. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me continue. A group is less likely to go to war. Let me back that up. Let me do that again. Without individuals that are hostile towards outsiders and willing to sacrifice themselves for the group, a group is less likely to go to war and less likely to win a war. Both hostility towards outsiders and altruism are crucial to winning a war. In this kind of environment, groups with less paroch I was being able to say this so well last night. Parochial, parochial. There you go. Thank you. Parochial. Not Pinocchio. Pinocchio. Yeah, like parochial schools. Okay. Parochial. God, altruist. Then lose out to groups with more parochial altruists. I really am tongue tied into today. Thanks, Chococelli, the tongue tied award. Yet, if the population of parochials dwindle in all groups, then there are fewer wars and greater gains from exchange. Hostility towards outsiders is necessary for war. However, without the will to sacrifice yourself for the group, hostility towards outsiders is not enough to have wars. People willing to sacrifice their life for the group are necessary for war. Yes, that's right. Altruism contributes to war. Altruism, the virtuous trait of sacrificing yourself for others, has a dark side. Without altruism, there might not be any wars. Also, war selects for altruism. So without war, there might not be any altruists. Jung Kyo Choi and Samuel Bowles, fired up, firing the bow, made an evolutionary game theory model to explore this. In the paper, The Coevolution of Parochial Altruism and War. Their simulation assumes people are either altruist or non-altruist and parochial or tolerant, making four types of people: parochial, altruist, parochial, non-altruist, tolerant, non-altruist, and tolerant altruist. Uh, the parochial altruist will fight when they encounter another group. A parochial non-altruist will not risk their life fighting, but will not cooperate with outsiders. Both tolerant types will try to trade and engage in mutual aid and outside with the outsiders instead of fighting. I can imagine what the different types would say when encountering another group. Parochial altruist. Let's kill those outsiders. Parochial non-altruist. After you, go get them. Tolerance. Maybe we could trade with them rather than kill them. In the simulation, groups are paired up randomly. The more parochials there are among the groups, the more chance the encounter will be hostile. If an encounter is peaceful, the tolerants benefit from the cooperation, but the parochials do not benefit. If the encounter is hostile and there's a large imbalance in the number of fighters, parochial altruists in each group, then there will be war. The number of fighters on each side determines the probability of victory. If there is war, some fighters on each side will be lost and the losers will lose non-combatants proportional to the power of disparity. The lost members are repopulated by offspring and randomly chosen mates from the victorious group. This intergroup interaction advantages parochial altruists, since groups with more parochial altruists will more likely win wars and repopulate the losing group. Then a public goods game is played with each group. Only the altruists contribute, but the benefit is larger than the contribution and is shared with everyone in the group equally, even non-contributors. Where'd you go? I scrolled and lost my place. The individual payoff. Where did you guys stop? This inner. I think I scrolled a lot further than I might have thought I did. Sorry. Let me just start here with non-combatants proportional to the power disparity. The lost members are repopulated. Yes, down. Then the individuals reproduce in proportional to their payoffs, and the next generation the same size as the last generation, then the parental generation dies off, leaving the groups the same size as before. Uh, so you can download the simulation from the Artificial Histories webpage. It is the one under the coevolution of parochial altruism and war, and you can play with the variables and see what has an effect on on the outcome, and that is move. Uh, that is from proper. Whoa, that's a hard one. Did there's some? Oh, there it is. I had a spot on my screen. Uh, Properal. So PROPERAL .liberty.me / altruism and racism cause war. Proprial liberty.me. If an issue or a matter is parochial, then I'm sorry, if it is parochial, it is trivial or only concerns a local area. Likewise, a person of parochial mentality is narrow minded and not open to new ideas. Parochial comes to English from the Greek word. Greek comes from Greek through Latin with the meaning of a parish. A parochial school is a school that is affiliated with a particular church. The connection is easy to see. In general, though, parochial refers to a narrow or a limited point of view. That is an outlook that extends no further than the limits of the parish. Rescue the perishing. You may feel that there's no room in your life for the parochial attitudes of the older generation. Let's hope you remain open minded as you age. From vocabulary.com, dictionary, parochial. What, let's see, why? Why? Tell me, why, baby? Hold on just a minute. I'll have a drink. Okay. Pardon. Here we go. Why do men behave justly? Is it because uh, is it because they fear societal punishment? Are they trembling before notions of the divine retribution? Do the stronger elements of society scare the weak into submission in the name of law? Or do men behave justly because it is good for them to do so? Is justice, regardless of its rewards and punishment, a good thing in and of itself? How do we define justice? Plato sets out to answer these questions in the Republic. He wants to define justice and to define it in such a way as to show that justice is worthwhile in and of itself. He meets these two challenges with a single solution: a definition of justice that appeals to human psychology rather than to perceived behavior. And again, excuse me. One sec. Scroll for me, please. All right, it's probably going to jump. Hold on. Quit playing here. There we go. Kind of. A little more. Come on. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so Plato's strategy in the Republic is to first implicate the primary notion of societal or political justice, and then to derive an analogous concept of individual justice. In books 2, 3, and 4, Plato identifies. Uh, just a second, I got pinged here. Um, uh, I can't you what I can't tell what you mean. I'm not sure what you mean. Um, okay, and now back to our story. Sponsored by Freedom. reminding you to STF you up and die. This message has been brought to you by A Better Tomorrow. Yeah, okay. Stop it. Oh, no, that's stop it in chat. I'd stop it. I think he works in a bottle factory. Stuffing leaks. One bottle at a time. All right, so here we are. Back to Plato's strategy, somewhere down. Books after books 2, 3, and 4. Plato uh, identifies political justice as harmony in a structured political body. An idea of society consists of three main classes of people. So here we see this the classical trivium where it's played out to bring the thinking of the system of today into where we are at, and we can see how this has evolved out of this. These ideas of society consist of the three main classes of people: producers, like craftsmen, farmers, artisans, and so forth. Now, auxiliaries, which would be warriors, and guardians, which are rulers. And a society is just when relations between these three classes are right. Each group must perform its appropriate function and only that function, and each must be in the right position of power in relation to the others. Rulers must rule, auxiliaries must uphold rulers' convictions, and producers must limit themselves to exercising whatever skills nature granted them, like farming and blacksmithing and painting and so forth. Of course, all that has evolved into today's society, but it is still the same caste system. This past caste, the past. Justice is a principle of specialization, a principle that requires that each person fulfill the societal role to which nature fitted him and not interfere in any other business. At the end of Book 4, Plato tries to show that individual justice mirrors political justice. He claims that the soul of every individual has a three-part structure analogous to the three analogous, I'm sorry, to the three classes of a society. There is a rational part of the soul which seeks after truth and is responsible for our philosophical inclination. A spirited part of the soul which desires honor and is responsible. Uh-oh, tangled. And where'd I go? I got tangled. And is responsible for our feelings of anger and indignation. And appetite, appetitive, yes, a soul of appetite, appetite part of the soul, which lust after all sorts of things, but money most of all, since money must be used to fulfill any other base desire. The just individual can be defined in analogy with the just society. The three parts of his soul achieve the requisite relationships of power and influence in regard to one another. It's just individual. The rational part of the soul rules. The spirit part of the soul supports this rule, and the appetite part of the soul submits and follows wherever reason leads. Put more plainly, in a just individual, an entire soul aims at fulfilling the desires of the rational part, which, as in the just society, the entire community aims at fulfilling whatever the rulers will. the the parallels between the just society and the just individual run deep. Each of the three classes of society, in fact, is dominated by one of the three parts of the soul. Producers are dominated by their appetites, their urges for money, luxury, and pleasure. Warriors are dominated by their spirits, which makes them courageous. Rulers are dominated by their rational facilities and strive for wisdom. Sure. Yeah, wise and waning over us, wisely wabbits. So that's book 5 through 7, and focus on the rulers as the philosopher kings. If only I were to rule, I would be a great and mighty benevolent ruler. You will serve with fear and trembling. In a series of three analogies, the allegories of the sun, the lion, and the cave, Plato explains who these individuals are while hammering out this theory of the forms. Plato explains that the world is divided into two realms: the visible, which we grasp with our senses, and the intelligible, which we only grasp with our mind. The visible world is a universe and we see around us. The intelligible world is comprised of the forms, abstract, changeless, absolute, such as goodness, beauty, redness, and sweetness, that exist in permanent relations to the visible realm and make it possible. An apple is red and sweet, the theory goes, because it participates in the forms of redness and sweetness. Only the forms are objects of knowledge because only they possess the eternal, unchanging truth that the mind, not the senses, must apprehend. Only those whose minds are trained to grasp the forms, the philosophers, can know anything at all. In particular, what the philosopher must know in order to become able rulers in this form, in this form of the good. The source of all other forms and of knowledge, truth, and beauty, Plato cannot describe this form directly, but he claims that it is to the intelligible realm what the sun is to the visible realm. Using the allegory of the cave, Plato paints an uh, evocative portrait of the philosopher's soul moving through the various stages of cognition, represented by the line, though the visible realm into the intelligible, and finally grasping the form of the good. And the aim of education is not to put knowledge into the soul, but to put the right desires into the soul, to fill the soul with a lust for truth, so that he desires to move past the visible world into the intelligible, ultimately to form of the good. Philosophers form the only class of men to possess knowledge and are also the most just men. Their souls are more than others, aim to fulfill the desires of the rational part. After comparing the philosopher king to the most unjust type of man, represented by the tyrant, who is ruled entirely by his non rational appetites, Plato claims that justice is worthwhile for its own sake. In Book 9, he represents three arguments for the conclusion that it is desirable to be just. By sketching a philosophical portrait of the tyrant, he attempts to prove that injustice tortures a man's psyche, whereas a just soul is healthy, is a healthy, happy one, untroubled and calm. Next, he argues that though each of the three main character types, money loving, honor loving, and truth loving, have their own conceptions of pleasure and the corresponding good life, each chooses his own life as the most pleasant. Only the philosopher can judge. Can judge because only he has experienced all three types of pleasure. The others should accept the philosopher's judgment and conclude the pleasures associated with the philosophical uh, with the philosophical are most pleasant, and thus the just life is also more pleasant. He tries to demonstrate that only philosophical pleasure is really pleasure at all. All other pleasure is nothing more than cessation of pain. One might notice that some of these arguments actually prove that justice is desirable apart from its consequences. Instead, they establish that justice is always accompanied by true pleasure. In all probability, none of these is actually supposed to serve as the main reason why justice is desirable. Instead, the desirability of justice is likely connected to the intimate relationship between the just life and the forms. The just life is good in and of itself because it involves grasping these ultimate goods and imitating their order and harmony, thus incorporating them into one's own life. Justice is good. In other words, because it is connected to the greater good, the form of the good. Plato ends the Republic on a surprising note. Having defined justice and established it as the greatest good, he banishes poets from his city. Poets, he claims, appear to the basest part of the soul by limiting unjust inclinations, by encouraging us to indulge ignobling emotions. Squirrel. Kim commented, I'll catch it. Back it up. Plato ends the Republic on a surprising note, having defined justice and established it as the greatest good. He banishes poets from his city. The poets, he claims, appeal to the basis part of the soul by limiting unjust inclinations. Didn't even say it as good the second time, did I? By encouraging us to indulge. Oh, I've run myself amok. To indulge ignoble emotions and sympathy with the characters we hear about. Poetry encourages. Stop. It's only a few more sentences. Get to this. And I got a fly. It came in and is trying to help me. Move, please. Thank you. And it's can I do this? In closing, Plato relates the myth of er, which describes the trajectory of a soul after death. Just souls are rewarded for 1,000 years, while unjust ones are punished for the same amount of time. Whap, whap, stop it. Stop. Quit. Leave me alone. Fly. No, not 1,000 years of the fly. Each soul then must choose its next life. So that comes from SparkNotes.com, Philosophy Republic Summary. And also, if you would like to listen to the Republic, I killed that tab. And I'm not going to copy and paste, but it's on YouTube. You'll find it. It is in the WordPress here, and you can listen. I'm going to be listening to it again. All right, let's go on. And if I've got notes to these further effects, they lie elsewhere, and the treasure will remain buried. But let's move on. Revolt in 2100 by Robert Heinlein. So, shall we pause for a moment? Here, puppy, puppy, puppy. Oh, that's some cute paws. That was a puppy, not me. Hold on. Wait. 10,000 years to give you such a pain in the neck. Okay, no. That was Robin Williams' impersonation of me, impersonating him, and Disney's Aladdin. Prince Abu, it is here. Heimlin's Revolt. On. Where, yes. Squirrels everywhere. We have this in from. Okay. I'm not crazy, okay? Heimlin's Revolt in 2100 is a science fiction novel set in a future when the U.S. is controlled by a religious dictatorship. I hope these segues all flow at so all this plagiarism I'm doing here. So it's set in a future within the U.S. is controlled by a religious dictatorship. It's told from the perspective of a young temple guard who joins the rebels. The story recounts the overthrow of this dictatorship by the cabal. The secret fraternity initiates its members into degrees, binds them to secrecy with solemn oaths, and teaches them passwords and passcripts, and meets in tiled lodges as overseen by a grand master. Freemason is never mentioned, but the details could only have been taken from a Masonic ritual book. That comes from freemasonry.bcy.ca. Fiction, Heinlein. Excuse me a moment. Okay. Secrecy is secrets. And for some reason, I'm having to click instead of being able to scroll. Let's scroll just a little bit. We'll catch yourselves up here. There it is. Secrecy is the keystone of all tyranny. Not force, but secrecy. Censorship. When any government or any church, for that matter, undertakes to say to its subjects, this you may not read, this you must not see, these things are forbidden to know. The end result is tyranny and oppression. No matter how holy the motives, mighty little force is needed to control a man whose mind has been hoodwinked. Contrariwise, no amount of force can control a free man, a man whose mind is free. No, not the rack, not fission bombs, not anything. You can't conquer a free man. The most you can do is kill him. Goodreads.com work quotes Revolt in 2100. We don't have any monopoly on hating tyranny and loving freedom, and we all need the help we can get. Anybody going our direction is a fellow traveler. Anybody. Haven't you gotten it through your head? Yet the whole pariah notion is this tyranny scapegoat mechanism that every tyranny requires. Make it forbidden, evil, limit it to ritual, force it back up into its suppressed sadism, then hand the people a scapegoat to hate. Kill them! Kill them! Let them kill a scapegoat occasionally for cathartic. Release the mechanisms. For cathartic release. I'm sorry. The mechanism is ages old. Tyrants used it before for centuries before the word psychology was ever even invented. No one was ever held in subjection long except for through their own consent. For 3 generations, the American people have been conditioned from cradle to grave. This is a quote. So, yeah, the 3 generations is part of the rendering of the book. But uh, yes, but it does coincide with generations. Now that I've interrupted myself. For generations, the American people, that's what I want to do. Take out the 3. For generations, the American people haven't been conditioned. They have been. Yes, they have been conditioned from cradle to grave by the cleverest, and most thorough psychotechnicians in the world. Mad science gone mad. It's crazy, crazy, I tell you. They believe if you turn them loose now, without adequate psychological preparation, they will go back into their chains like horses returning to a burning barn. So we've got these people that feel that we need to be subjected and controlled for our own good. I, the benevolent dictator, I will never not do nothing very good for you, okay? Now, STF up and die. It's for your own good, and it's, after all, make it for a much a greater tomorrow. You be dead, sure. Okie dokie. In essence, a dictator's strength depends not upon guns, but upon the but but upon the faith of his people that they place in him. This had been true of Caesar, of Napoleon, of Hitler and Stalin. It was necessary to strike first at the foundations of the prophet's powers, the popular belief that he ruled by direct authority of God. Future generations will undoubtedly find it impossible to believe the extreme importance to both religious faith and political power of the miracle of the incarnation. That incarnation, this most dangerous superstition. Ad lib, thanks, like and Rose, the most dangerous superstition. As we continue, devout, devout in the established faith. Yes, devout in the established faith, and he suspects me of heresy. Now, this cub, with his bulging forehead and his whirling lights, would condition my brother to make him politically reliable. He stopped the gas asthmatically and went on. Free men aren't conditioned. Free men are free because they are ornery and cussed, and prefer to arrive at their own prejudices in their own way and not have them be spoon fed by a self appointed mind thinker, or thinker, I mean, that is, a self appointed mind thinker. We have fought, our brethren haven't bled and died just to change bosses, no matter how sweet their motives. I tell you, we got to get into the mess. Wait a minute. I tell you, we got into this mess we're in through the efforts of those same mind tinkerers. They've studied for years how to saddle a man and ride him. They started with advertising and propaganda and things like that. They perfected it to the point where what what used to be simple, honest swindling, such as any salesman might use, became a mathematical science that left the ordinary man helpless. Revolt in 2010, Robert A. Heinlein, the New American Library, Signet Book, New York, 1954, copyright 1939, 1940 by Street and Smith Publications Incorporated, contents E. Innocent I, and introduction by Henry Kettner. What? Kettner. What? Kettner. Yes. If this goes on, Coventry, Misfit Concerning Stories Never Written. Postscript from www.libros.am. Book, read, ID, slug, revolt in 2010. Okay. The passage, this is on to another book. The passage starts with Judge Holden from page 249 in that book, and that is No Country for Old Men. This is the nature of war, whose stake is at once the game and the authority and the justification. Seen so, war is the truest form of divination. It is a testing of one's will and the will of another larger, within that larger will, which, because it binds them, is therefore forced to select. War is the ultimate game, because war is at last a forcing of the unity of existence. War is God. Brown studied the judge. You're crazy, Holden. Crazy at last. The judge smiled. Mighty does not make might right, said Irving. The man that wins in some combat is not vindicated morally. Moral law is an invention of mankind for the disenfranchisement of the powerful in favor of the weak. Historical law subverts it at every turn. A moral view can never be proven right or wrong by any ultimate test. A man falling dead in a duel is not thought thereby to be proven in error as to his views. His very involvement in such a trial gives evidence of a new. Hi, Hal. Excuse me. Uh, Pardon me for a moment. Uh, live at the moment. Uh, we got probably, we're going to take the rest of the hour. Uh, B. Okay. There we go. What a great guy. Al Anthony behind the woodshed. Now, I suppose I'll just a little swallow of water and we'll find our way back in. Okay, where am I? Man's vanity, his very involvement. Let's see. The willingness of the principals to forego further argument as the triviality, which is in fact is, and to petition directly the chambers of the historical absolute clearly indicates of how little moment are the opinions and of what moment the diverges thereof. The argument is indeed trivial, but not so the separate wills thereby made manifest. Man's vanity may well approach the infinite in a capacity, but this knowledge remains imperfect, and however much he comes to value his judgment, ultimately he must submit them before a higher court. Here there can be no special pleadings. Here are considerations of equity, and rectitude, and moral right rendered void and without warrant. And here are the views of the litigants despised. Decisions of life and death, of what shall be and what shall not. Beggar all question of right. In elections of these magnitudes are all lesser ones, subsumed, moral, spiritual, natural. Oh no, uh, my thing's wigging. Uh oh, God, come back. I hope that not crazy up here. Uh, Stop doing that. My keyboard took off all crazy like. Okay, good. We're not there no more. On that other machine that we're broadcasting. Well, two of them together. All right, back to where I was at. Here we go. The judge searched out the circle for disputants, but what says the priest? He says. Tobin looked up. The priest does not say. The priest does not say, said the judge. Nihil, yeah, how can I pronounce it? Nihil. Neil. I think it's Neil. Neil deceit. But anyway, but the priest has said, for the priest has put by the robes of his craft and taking up the tools of that higher calling, which all men of honor. The priest also would be no God server, but a God himself. I really should try to maybe read that again. The priest does not say, said the judge, nihil deceit. Not any better. But the priest has said, for the priest has put by the robes of his craft and taken up the tools of that higher calling, which all men honor. We honor that higher calling that he took up. The priest would also be no God server, but a God himself. Tobin shook his head. You're a blasphemous tongue holding, and in truth, I was never a priest, but only a novice. This is an old word. A novitate. There you go. Thank you. You're welcome. A novitate to the order. Journeyman priest or apprentice priest, said the judge, men of God and men of war have strange affinities. I'll not second say you're in notion, said Tobin. Don't ask it. Ah, priest, said the judge. What could I ask of you that you have not already given? And so there's a reply in this, and I'll tell you where it came from here. But Eddie replies, reply by Eddie Adams.
He says, I would argue against the absolute definition of moral law as a disenfranchisement of the powerful in favor of the weak, because when the weak are many and united, then they become powerful. Consider Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. Kurtz was powerful but unable to express his power in modern London. It would have been different in the London of the Roman Empire. Kurtz had to be in a vast wilderness, separate from the society of London. Glanton had to be in the wilderness of the American Southwest. Had he and his band stayed in Sonora, they would all have all been hanged. As they reached the civilization of California and decided to prey upon a growing population from a static position, they were destroyed as a group of the survivors fell to civil. I think I lost something. And decided to prey upon a growing population from a static position. They were destroyed as a group, and the survivors fell to civil authorities. Even the kid was down by civilization. There had to be a population to insist upon the presence of Jakes. The definition of the weak and the powerful grow unclear when numbers become a factor. So that comes from gringolost.wordpress. How Judge Holden Blood Meridian. And I'm going to have to come to pour some more water. That one is exhausted. Ooh, water, water. Comes right up off the ground. Put it in my cup. I should have pulled one for okay, hour and a half. How close are we? I think I'll make it. uh, wait just a minute. Good cough coming up here. Let me get this one out of the way. Okay. Better? So maybe. Okay, so this is being asked is that the shape of the world is wholly contingent. In other words, the world is entirely conditioned and based wholly on random chance. Things look solid, and we can see and we can trace our path to where we are at this very moment. You, reading this, can do the same. But the way you got to that point was as arbitrarily determined as a dice roll or a coin flip. So let me scroll. Uh, in the novel that the film is based upon, we get and this is No Country for Old Men. And so in this novel that the film is based upon, we get a reminiscence on Chigger's philosophy of the coin, perhaps. But look at it my way. I got here the same way the coin did. She sat sobbing softly. She didn't answer. For things at the moment, for things at a common destination, there is a common path. Not always easy to see, but there. Everything I ever thought has turned out different, she said. There ain't the least part of my life I could have guessed. Not this, not none of it. I know. You wouldn't let me out of this no way. I had no say in the matter. Every moment in your life is a turning and everyone a choosing. Somewhere you made a choice. All followed to this. The accounting is scrupulous. The shape is drawn. No line can be erased. Back to Plato. I had no belief in your ability to move a coin to your bidding. How could you? A person's path through the world seldom changes, and even more seldom will it change abruptly. And the shape of your path was visible from the beginning. No Country for Old Men, pages 258, 259.
This is the author speaking now from which I took this. I apologize for how difficult that is to read. Thanks, Cormac McCarthy. But it should be pretty clear that the point is Jigger sees the world as wholly predetermined. The coin might land heads up sometimes, and you might be able to call it. But things were always meant to be that way. In video games, choice is still factored out through a series of predetermined possibilities. You create trees, and those trees share some branches and some trunks and some roots. No matter what choices you make in the game, eventually the narrative you're moving through ends. In knitting that ending together, designers often have to make their own choices about how things sequence and how neatly they end. Ultimately, narratives tend to end in a single data point, and sometimes it can be a dyad or a triad. X, Y, or Z happen. Okay, along the way, along the way to those few points, lots of different choices get made. There are choices about when to do things, how to do things, and how to respond to a situation with both actions and arguments, and when to use items. The list of possible kinds of choices goes on and on. Let me, since this is out, let me make sure everything's still looking good. Come back up here where I can monitor you. Yes. Good. Okay. Still going. Am I? Why'd you fall? All right. You stay up there. Thank you. Okay. So back. This foreclosure choice that things must end and they must end in certain ways is something that we have come to accept as players. Either it is never spoken of, or on the other end, it is hidden from players completely. And that's fine. Games with really engaging narratives, chock full of decisions, the Fallout games, Mass Effect, some examples there. I don't know who that they are ultimately about the journey and how the journey feels. And so, for most players, the arbitrariness of choice isn't a negative. In fact, for many, it is a positive. It is a small diamond shaped choice, trees in the middle of games that add flavor to the additional playthroughs, after all. I'm wondering about revealing to coin players can play can play can players deal with making choices while simultaneously being told those choices are ultimately arbitrary? How would players react to being spoken to, frankly, about a game's philosophy of the coin? Can you tell a player that their choices didn't matter in a way that opens up into a beautiful absurdism rather than closing down into a sad so what? Ah, can I pronounce this site? Narrative Lessons from Anton Chigger, and that's from the H, the T's, and the P, and the semicolon and forward slash. EPANALEPSIS.com. Pronounce it for yourself. Epanel lepsis. Yeah, epanel lepsis. Good enough? Let's take a momentary pause. Oh, yeah, that was out. All right. Being mindful as a character quality. I think this is going to be from Dr. Simon, if I remember right. Yeah. Yes, yes, yes. Dr. Simon on UCY.TV, Sunday nights at 6 p.m. Central Time. Character matters. It's where our foundation of how we interact. And we see character flaws, certainly in most, but it's becoming predominant more and more in society, is it not? Excuse me. So, all right, we'll try this now. There we go. But mindfulness as a character quality is more than a particular practice. It's a state of being and a way of living. Being mindful is about keeping ourselves maximally aware. It's being attentive to our inner world and the world around us and the impact of our choices on both those worlds. Being more mindful does not come naturally to most. Most of us are creatures of habit. Something happens and we respond, and too many times we respond instinctively without much thinking. That's that's what so often gets us in trouble. Huh, boy, do I know. We act, and if we're conscious at all, ponder the consequences later. Sometimes we even have regret for the way we responded. But that's usually not enough to keep us from making the same mistake again. As anyone knows, our habits can be very hard to break, and cultivating the mindfulness necessary to lead a less habit driven life takes practice. Manipulative-people.com thinking first impulse. Dr. Simon, thank you. Uh, I've participated with Dr. Simon several times. Uh, and that goes back to to. Oh, you know what? I'll end with that part. I didn't cover that, did I? Yes, I did not. And yes, I have no bananas today. Oh, there it is. Yeah. Besides, but I talked about this earlier. Dr. Simon, my interpretation is that he asks of one's character that it asks itself, finding the value and knowing its power that lies within. And that character is love, in my opinion. Yeah, the baseline. Okay. It's not enough to just be willing to admit the truth. Many folks will do that, especially after they've been caught lying. Rather, it's more important to truly revere the truth. A solid character knows the value of the truth, its power to heal, to empower, and to free. But it's always a choice to embrace the truth. A choice truly decent characters freely make. And that is from manipulative-people.com, deception and manipulation. Also, again, thank you, Dr. Simon. All right, now, one moment. Okay, so let's move. And if I can pull the notes out of my head for this, but what exactly is servitude? I think I'm going to be taking a couple of looks here, two different perspectives, Christian and Buddha, and then we're pretty close to rounding out. So, as the altruist, one would seem to say maybe servant. So, but what is exactly is servanthood? Servanthood is the state, condition, or quality of one who lives as a servant. Further, a servant is, first of all, one who is under submission to another. For Christians, this is this person's opinion, this means submission to God first and then submission to one another, which for me, yes, kind of, that's a good meaning. Then, as one in submission, a servant is one who seeks to meet the real needs of others or a person he is serving. To put it another way, servanthood is the condition or state of being a servant to others or ministry to others rather than the service of self. It means willingly giving of oneself to minister for or to others and to do whatever it takes to accomplish what is best for another. Uh, there's great reward in servanthood in it, and when a person uh, and not and this caused me myself to when looking at myself to question, am I a narcissist? What I do I do it for glory, for a pat on the back, for recognition, or what? Or uh, it, well, I might need to get to specify, I guess, some in what I'm talking about, but then what I do here, or um, I like at church, going to the old folks' home and singing hymns, and coming along and turning the pages, going around to the folks there and bringing them to the hymn, and smiling and having a good time. I just that's a servitude that is self fulfill. It gives fulfillment. What is it for the actual? uh, joy that you receive? Is that self-serving, or is it just part of the energy that exists? So, for me, I guess I'm not a narcissist, as it turns out. Okay. However, when serving others and their needs, if the underlying motive and goal is some form of self-love, I love me, I love me, I love, like the praise of others for the services rendered, then one service is in reality hypocritical. This type of service is really aimed at serving selfish ends, usually in the futile pursuit of personal significance through something like praise, power, and status. That comes from Bible.org, series page, Mark a Heart Servant. Now, this is where the philosophy has been kind of wrangled and rolled in. This will come from another site, which I'll come around to here. Just bear with me a moment. Come loose here. Um, just a sec. Just a sec. Just a sec. Hold on. Right back. Okay, I got ping. Let me go see what's ping. Ping, ping, pong. Here we are. Grimner says every supposed altruist has an ulterior motive, whether they realize it or not. Good. I think that's right. Yeah, whether self fulfilling, certainly. Okay, so this self servant leadership can be understood as bridging the modern necessity to work and lead within complex organizations and environments with the call for tapping into ancient wisdom self that is absent from such settings. The servant leader's role is like that of Peruvian chacaruna, one of the bridges to the core reality of sacred ecology within that of civil society. Shamans have called upon chacaruna to meditate between what I call the dream of the world, global economic system, and the dream of the earth. Boy, this is so set up for the takedown, the stalking horse and the stakeholder. I hope you can read in between the lines here as this unfurls. So shamans have called on Shakaruna to mediate between what I call the dream of the world, that's that global economic system, and the dream of the earth, embedded ecology. In terms of our world's vernacular, that is, an educated members of the global system, a shakaruna is a servant leader, one who serves life but also knows how to leverage the system that he or she works in. The servant leader has a foot in both worlds in order to bring them harmony. Oh, no, not harmony, that's corn. Harmony. I'm tempted to paraphrase and over. Stop. Let me move this here. Okay. I'm tempted to paraphrase. I always paraphrase or plagiarize an overused cliche. Servant leaders are made, not born, but there's truth to the statement in Buddhism. It's no secret that nothing changes without sitting on the cushion. The cushion is, the cushion will be. Oh, in Buddhism, one makes or remakes her consciousness. Can you feel your feminine side? Through practicing a dharma, an architectural model for change. But it is something one learns through effort, testing, and experience. Effective leadership comes from self-knowledge and awareness that can come about from a variety of tool sets, with mindfulness being a middle way for leaders of all kinds. In primal leadership, Goldman, Boyadism, and McGee point out greater leaders, the research shows, are made of as they are gradually acquired in the course of their lives and careers. The competencies, I'm running out of it. The competencies that make them so effective. They can also be that they can be learned by any leader at any point. And the authors stress that such skills can be mastered through understanding cognition. One must know thyself, in particular, how the mind functions during various states, be they stressful or pleasurable. Back to Plato. And it all ties so well, doesn't it? RealitySandwich.com, ancient future servant leaders. There you go. Put the H's and the T's and the P's and the semicolons and forward slash forward slash. Okay. Wow, have we come up to the end? But I do believe I will be uh, adding just a little bit more. Wait. Did I do it? Where's that at? Uh, or did I already? No. I will come there. There it is, and then I'll come back to that, and then I'm probably going to tack on just a little bit more from a link that Grimner dropped. So this is the end, my friend. When asked as to why the lesser of two evils reign, but evil is evil after all. And this was actually a response that I gave to Dr. Simon on air. I respond how problem, reaction, solution comes from a cause facilitated incrementally over generations, conditioned by social engineering, apathy, and ignorance is consent of the governed. Those that were called to lead have left us on the opposite side of their interest, and it's time to call them to account. And without law, they're without. Oh, I've ruined my plagiarized plagiarism, paraphrased plagiarism of Al. But without remedy in law, it is war. That's what it was. That's right. So remember, revolutions don't happen when things are really bad. They happen when things get a little better for a little while. When people get a taste of some things, get a better life for a little while, as Joe Dirt says, or am I just trying to justify being a damn dirty hippie? I don't know, but let's go over here. This is from ZeroHedge.com, news 2016, October 21. I thought this was good. I read through part of it. And since we got a few minutes, I thought perhaps I might have this saved to include. Welcome to neocolonialism. Exploited peasants. And boy, doesn't this tie in so well. Okay, so this has to do with Max Kaiser and his answer on neocolonialism. But I wanted to start somewhere down just a little ways. Right, how about right here? We all know how old fashioned colonialism worked. The imperial power takes political and economic control of previously independent lands. In the traditional colonial model, there are two primary benefits. The imperial power, that's the core, extracts valuable commodities and low cost labor from its colony, the periphery. The imperial power sells its own high margin manufactured goods to the captured market of its colony. This is where we've come. This is Plato's Republic. This is all how it's intended. Rise and fall, rise and fall. But we come to where we are, and it's the same game. Thousands of years now, same game. Right? This buy low, sell high dynamic is the heart of colonialism, which can be understood as one example of the core peripheral model. June 11th, 2013. The book's Sweetness and Power, The Place of Sugar in Modern History is an excellent history of how this model worked for Great Britain. So I will bring that and include that also in the revision, and I'm about really, let's see, about almost done really. Let me see. There was some really good stuff in. I'm just skipping over it. So, in essence, the core banks of the EU colonized a peripheral nation via the financial euro. So that's an example there. The IMF, all that stuff. It's uh, 1913. It's the Federal Reserve, or so-called the private no reserve, the fiat of the money that controls us. And quite frankly, almost every bit of it in complete full entirety has been robbed, pirated away. Disparity. Okay. Uh, oh, maybe I should be whistling Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yeah. We ain't just a whistling Dixie. All right, let's call that and be done with it. And let me drop over here back to rlmRadio.xyz. Thanks for listening, folks. Who's a talking over here? Who's who's that? There's some folks over here. Come over to the chat next time if you're downstream. Throw your 2 cents in. You've been engaged. And okay, so now, oh my, the personal part of my life. Hmm. So it looks like things have come back around. Dealing with idiot. All this, interaction we got to do. Oh man, were they pups that probably been mongrels and knocked in the head when they was born? I just knocked myself in the head, knocked my thing off the top of the mic. So disparaging sometimes. This world we live in, but we're here trying to make it a little better place. All right. Thanks, guys. Been your host, Vince Easley, one of the many minis. And appreciate you listening. Peace, yo.